What's up guys, in this video we are going to talk about interoperability in Jetpack Compose. As you might already know, interoperability, which means how well the new APIs work with the existing APIs. It's very important that the integration of the new API should be easier, otherwise if it's hard, I guess nobody is going to do it. Jetpack Compose has done a wonderful job on interoperability and we are going to see this through some examples. For migrating your app to Compose, there are two suggested approaches by Android. The first one is bottom-up approach, in which you start with migrating smaller view elements first, like piece by piece you start converting your buttons, text view, radio buttons into composable. And then you convert their parents like linear layout, constraint layout to composable until your whole layout is converted to compose. And then there is this second approach called top-down approach. In this approach, you start with your fragments and then you convert their view groups like constraint layouts, and then you convert to the smaller elements like buttons, text views, radio buttons and things like that until your whole layout is converted to composable. In this section, we will talk about how to use your existing custom views with Compose. Oftentimes, we have custom views like some views that extend image view, text view, or a button, or maybe a map view. Currently, some views like add views or map views are not supported with Compose yet. So what do we do in that case when we cannot build some custom view like a map view in Compose? Luckily, Android has provided a workaround for that. Let's try to understand this using an example. In the previous video, we made this layout. Now we need to add a rating bar and a custom text view in it. For this purpose, I'm going to use a custom rating bar that is extending Android rating bar. And for the text view, we have just made a dummy text view that is extending Android text view. So let's try to add these two custom views into our layout. This is our existing layout that looked something like this. Now firstly, we need to add a custom text view at the bottom. So we are already in the column. Let's try to define a custom text view first. We have this text view called custom text view. Let's try to add this. The context is available with this class localContext.front. Now once we have defined our text view, in order to add our custom view into Jetpack Compose, Android has provided a function called Android View. Let's call that function. Let's simply pass the custom text view to it. Now let's try to run this. As you can see, the custom text view is added at the bottom. Now we need to add the rating bar. Custom material rating bar is actually a library that we are using, which is built in Java. So now we are going to add this as a custom view in our activity. Let's set the rating to 5 as our design. Now again, in order to add this custom rating bar in our Jetpack Compose, we need to call this function Android View and pass our custom view. Let's align this horizontally. Now let's run this. Now you can see our custom bar is nicely added. So we added a custom text view and a custom rating bar. Using this approach, you can add any of your existing custom layouts into Jetpack Compose. Like if you have a map view that is not yet supported with the Jetpack Compose, you can simply add it using this Android View function. While you are migrating your app to Compose, you might have a scenario where you do not want to rewrite all your XML to Compose. Instead, you keep the existing XML and start writing the new features in the Compose. Let's try to understand this through an example. For the sake of example, we have this login activity that is built in XML using constraint layout. Now instead of rewriting the whole design in Compose, what we want is to add rest of the design in Compose. In your existing app, you might have more complex layouts where you would like to keep the XML and start writing the new features in Compose. In this example, I'm gonna be adding a login button and a text button in this XML using Compose. For this purpose, Android has provided a view container named Compose View. Let's try to first add this in our XML. Now let's get back to our activity and try to access this compose view. I'm going to add a new function for that. Now let's try to access our compose view. Now in this container, there's a method available called setContent. Now whatever you want to add through Jetpack Compose in this layout, you will write all the code here. So let's define a column. And let's give it vertical arrangement top because we want our element to appear at the top of the container. First I'm gonna add some top padding. Now let's add the login button. As we discussed in the previous videos that in a column the child element can align themselves anything on the x-axis, so we have added a property aligning them center horizontally. Let's add some more padding. Let's call this function at the top. Okay, the button and text view is not added. I think we made a mistake in our layout. Let's try to figure out what has gone wrong. Okay, I think we need to give it a bottom property that we forgot. So let's change this to constraint bottom. Now you can see the container has full height. Let's try to run this one more time. Now you can see a login button and a text view is added in the XML layout using Compose. So by using this Compose view container, you can start adding new features into your existing XML using Jetpack Compose. Last but not least, we are going to see how to use Compose with a fragment. Previously with XML, we used to pass an inflated layout in the onCreate view like this. Now let's see how to use Compose in a fragment. Let's first remove these lines. We are going to make use of Compose view to pass the layout to the fragment. Now simply do apply, and just like we called setContent before, we are going to call setContent. And this is where you are going to define all of your layout in Compose. So for instance, let's just define a text view inside. And now let's simply return the Compose view that we just made. Now let's run this. Now we have our Compose inside the fragment, and you can continue making the rest of the layout from here. This is the simplest implementation of using Compose with fragments. That's it for this video. I hope by now you have good idea of interoperability with Compose. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.